Happy October. I'm going to be giving you some Halloween themed, some Halloween related book recommendations today. Let's get started. Number 1, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This is a book about a witch who is summoned to a very mysteriously named house called Nowhere House, and she is asked to teach 3 little girls, 3 little witches, how to control their magic. And so this is a cute, cozy read about like found family. There's some romance in here. It is cute, it is cozy, it is romantic, it is witchy, it is perfect for Halloween. Book number 2 is called The Ex-Hex. This book is another romantic witchy read. It is about a witch who accidentally curses her ex-boyfriend, and the story that unravels from there. So, do they get back together? Do they not? What happens? You'll have to read it to find out. This is the last romantic witchy book, okay? But the 3rd book is called The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. The little synopsis online says that this is perfect for fans of Gilmore Girls and Practical Magic. So again, it's very cozy. But if you like Practical Magic, it has that kind of flavor in it as well. In that our main character, our main witch, Sadie, I believe her name is, has magic. Obviously, she is a witch, but her magic comes at a price. And that price is that she has to experience 4 heartbreaks. And so this is about those 4 heartbreaks and how she overcomes that feeling of heartbreak. All right, moving on from the romantic witchy stuff. This next section is actually 3 Neil Gaiman books. The first one is Coraline. This is about a girl, her family moves into a new flat and there's this mysterious door. She's led to the door, and when she goes through, it leads to a magical world where everything seems to be perfect. But not all is as it seems. It turns out that it's a lot spookier and a lot more sinister than it seems. That's Coraline. Next is The Graveyard Book. This book is loosely based on / inspired by The Jungle Book, in that we have a little boy and his family is killed when he is very young. He stumbles into an environment that is different than his own, and beings that are not like him take him in and adopt him and raise him. In this book, that environment happens to be a graveyard, and the beings that take him in are ghosts. We are following this little boy through his life as he's being raised by ghosts. For fans of The Jungle Book, check this one out. It's very good. Next is The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I'm not going to tell you too much about this book because I didn't know too much about this book before I read it, and I am glad I just picked it up. I read it and I was surprised. And I want you to be surprised too. So here's the synopsis that I was given before I read this book, okay? It is about a man who returns to his hometown for a funeral. And as he's in his hometown, he drives to the neighborhood that he grew up in. And so as he's sitting in this neighborhood, he begins to reflect on this summer that he experienced when he was 7. And some magical, witchy characters that he met that summer. That's all I'm going to tell you. Go read the book. It is so good. And I hope you're surprised like I am, because it was good. Trust me, it's good. This next book is called Ravenfall, and it is about a magical inn and 2 kids that have supernatural powers, and they need to defeat a Celtic monster that wants to destroy their town on Halloween. Kind of like a mystery adventure in this magical town. Based on what I've heard about this book, this town sounds a lot like the town in either like Halloween Town or Wednesday, where it's made up of like people and also these Halloween monsters. You've got these 2 kids who want to save the town before Halloween. Next book on this list is called Slewfoot. This takes place in colonial New England in 1666. You know, at that time, a lot of New England was populated by Puritans, and we have this creature called Slewfoot that they think of as the devil. And we have Abatha, who is a widowed outcast, and because she's cast out this Puritan community, she befriends and relies on Slewfoot. It is a tale of bewitchery and a battle between pagan and Puritan. Next is a book called Masters of Death. This book is about a real estate agent who happens to be a vampire, and she's selling a house that is haunted, and the ghost that is haunting this house will not leave the house until his murder is solved. So the 2 of them reach out to and work with a medium who also happens to be the godson of death. in order to solve this ghost murder. Sounds like a fun, spooky time if you ask me. Next is a series of 2 books called Lobizona and Cazadora. This is about a girl who is a werewolf, and it is based on Argentinian folklore, which says that all 7th sons that are born are destined to be werewolves, and all 7th daughters are destined to be witches. But for some reason, this girl, who should be a witch, actually turns out to be a werewolf. And so it's about her being a werewolf and not quite fitting into this magical world, but also not quite fitting into the human world either, because she is an immigrant in the US and isn't treated great as such. Just finding her place and finding people who do care about her, who do value and love her. Moving on, the next book I have on this list is called Halloween Party. It is by Agatha Christie. It is a classic Agatha Christie murder mystery. So this murder takes place at a Halloween party. As with most murder mysteries, they don't think anybody could have done it. Like, it seems like nobody at the party could have possibly done it, and so people at this party begin to think it might have been a ghost. Another reason I have this on the list is because there's a movie coming out this year based on this book. The movie is called A Haunting in Venice, but it is based on this book by Agatha Christie. Next, I have Our Hideous Progeny. This book is a follow-up to Frankenstein. It is about Victor Frankenstein's great niece. She somehow finds his research, finds the notes from his experiment, and decides, you know what, I'm gonna do this too. I think I can do this better. And so she recreates his experiment and makes a monster of her own. I haven't read this yet. I'm about to start reading it. Looks like a lot of fun. If you look at the cover, it's got these like eggshells and like a little reptilian eye on it. And the synopsis says that her husband works with fossils. So I am really hoping that she reanimates a dinosaur. I just think that would be a lot of fun. A fun twist to Frankenstein. I'll let you know if that's how it turns out. Next, another Frankenstein related book is Mary's Monster. This book is about Mary Shelley, and it tells the story of her life leading up to the publication of Frankenstein and how different events in her life may have inspired Frankenstein in some way. And so I really love this book. It has beautiful pictures. It is written in poetry, I think. It is very well researched. And so you can tell that like this is accurate. She did her homework, and so I really enjoyed reading this book before rereading Frankenstein. Speaking of Frankenstein, obviously, by Mary Shelley. This is a classic about a man who decides to play God and says, you know what, I'm gonna make my own creature, my own being. I'm gonna make it how I want it. And so he like makes this creature. Yeah, it's about this mad scientist and his monster, and how the monster becomes a monster, and how the scientist himself is actually a monster in creating such a being. Very Halloween-y. We see a lot of Frankenstein. We see a lot of the monster in like Halloween decorations and such. So I figured I couldn't make a Halloween book recommendation video and not mention Frankenstein. Let's get on to some more Halloween related classics, shall we? Another Halloween classic is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So this one is about a man who is a teacher in a small colonial American town, and he mysteriously disappears. He may or may not have been chased out of town by a headless ghost known as the Headless Horseman. So it's spooky, ghosty. Next is Dracula. If you like vampires, Dracula is like probably the most well-known like vampire novel. If you haven't read Dracula and you like vampires, you should read Dracula this year. Another vampire classic novel is called Carmilla. This book was actually published 20 or 30 years before Dracula, so it came first, and it is about a female vampire. Classic vampire gothic kind of vibes. I think Carmilla and Dracula would both be great books for you to read. Next classic that I want to talk about is The Phantom of the Opera. Like the musical, it's about a phantom who haunts the opera house in Paris. Does some shady, spooky things in the opera house to like scare the people who work there. It's spooky, it's scary. The reason I put this on this list is because my mom read this in college and she was home alone when she was reading it, and she said it spooked her out so much that she had to run around the whole house and turn on all the lights because it was just too scary to read at night by herself in the dark. And so that sounds like a great book to read at Halloween time. Next, Edgar Allan Poe. Read anything by Edgar Allan Poe and I feel like you'll get a creepy, eerie, Halloween-y kind of vibe. That's all I have to say about that. Next is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is about a doctor who is mysteriously changing into a more monstrous and violent version of himself. And so it's kind of like the mystery behind like why and how that is happening. And I read this a couple years ago at Halloween. I felt like it was kind of spooky and mysterious and perfect for Halloween, so I would recommend you read it at Halloween as well. All right. The last 3 books that I want to talk about are all graphic novels. The first one is called Sheets. It is about a little ghost and it looks adorable. That's all I care about. It looks adorable. Don't you think? The color palette is beautiful. I want to read it. It's about a ghost. Give it to me. I'm going to read it this Halloween. The last 2 books are a little series of graphic novels about a little personified bulb of garlic. The first one is Garlic and the Vampire, in which Garlic has to go defeat a vampire. And the second is Garlic and the Witch, in which Garlic has to go face a witch. And it just looks so cute. You got this little timid bulb of Garlic build up his courage to go face these spooky opponents. This little series was highly recommended by Allie from the YouTube channel Allison Pages. So I think, first of all, it just looks adorable, but also she said the story itself is super cute as well. Those are all of my Halloween related book recommendations. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about some of these books, I am actually doing a little Halloween reading challenge where I read 13 Halloween books before Halloween. If you want to hear more details about some of these books, please click the subscribe button down below because I'm going to be making 2 reading vlogs. Stay tuned for that if you're interested in that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! So, yeah. Werewolves. Werewolves! I've already talked about that one. To the pub this year is that... George, can you stop?